Hey guys, what's up? Week 391. Hope everybody had a great Halloween. Please check out the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch 1982 video I did with Troy Howarth. I think we did a pretty good job. Always great to have him on. Also, let's just, I got a huge update, I should say. Bunch of stuff, Vinegar Syndrome, my All Haunts box set, a bunch of stuff came in. So let's just hop into the reviews. Not as many new releases and stuff as I'd like to get to normally, but there's a handful. So first up, 1982, greatest geek year ever. This is from MVD Rewind. It's number 61. So this is perfect lining up with what I'm covering for 1982. I'm doing the whole 1982 thing. So I was like, yes, let's just get some, some background on 1982 as a whole, all the films of the year. I'm covering like the horror and horror adjacent films, but that what came out that year also has a huge impact on what was released horror-wise. So this film is, the worst case scenario would have been a bunch of talking heads that really had nothing to do with the movie, that aren't really I would say that are in with the film industry and stuff like that. That would have been really a rough kind of go. So this, when I popped in, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, well edited, has clips from the films in there, has clips from the trailers, has clips from news footage and all that kind of stuff, and then it has a bunch of great guests as well. It has people that were involved with the film, including actors, producers, writers, also big kind of critics, and at the time and of now. So it was a heavy mixture of stuff. They kind of kept it to a minimal when it comes to the fan kind of thing. I'm not the biggest fan of just fans talking about movies and geeking out where they said they saw it, where they rented it. I think that's been done to death. It's a very YouTube thing, which is what I'm on, and I do it myself. So I'm always like, when it's in like a feature film documentary, I'm like, why are we doing this here? Not that stuff is not worth watching or doesn't hold some sort of weight, but I always like it better when it's kept on its own documentaries or not in these ones. So saying that, 1982 is a heavy year. Obviously, they're going to discuss a slew of films, including E.T., Blade Runner, The Thing, Poltergeist, Megaforce. They touch on a lot of the lesser knowns too. Not lesser knowns, but lesser knowns in the big kind of mainstream, like Slumber Party Massacre. They show clips from a lot of stuff like Parasite, Friday the 13th Part 3, Halloween 3. So it has a wide plentra of stuff. But I like is that they have people that were actually involved with the movies that get to sit down and say that had this sheer disappointment on there, and people that wrote scripts for people like Clint Eastwood saying how the movies came together. And you really get kind of a glimpse how movies were made back then, how different it is, and they compare it. And there's of course a nostalgia piece to it, a lot of nostalgia that the critics and some of the people that were making the movies have too. Like I said, there's people from the time period, and then there's filmmakers from now. Like you'll see Brea Grant and Drew McWeeny, a critic from more modern times, in there discussing. He also, I believe, Drew McWeeny helped write stuff too. Was he the one who worked with Carpenter? I know they had a podcast years ago. And one of them wrote for John Carpenter stuff. So a lot of these people coming in here, they have some weight to what they say. They have, good takes and interesting takes and intelligent takes. It's also 2 hours and 42 minutes or something along those lines, 45 minutes. So it really, you're kind of worried that, this is going to be a long watch. And it is. I broke it up in a couple, but I never was bored. I never wasn't not intrigued by the subject matter. Like I said, it's not hard on the eyes. It's well edited. There's a lot of funny clips in here. They steer away from having like the kind of same crap here and over and over and over again. A lot of special features on Blu-rays and stuff. You listen to the commentary or watch a featurette and you're like, this is the same exact information on two different supplemental features. This is not that. The people all speak differently and stuff like that. They all have some overlining stuff, but there's a really funny moment where they ask, well, won Best Picture in 1982? And there's a bunch of people that are like, I don't remember. I can't. And they're like, and then when you actually find out what won in 1982, it's kind of funny. So it also discusses the carryover from the 70s, which a lot of the early 80s cinema definitely has, that nihilism and that downbeat kind of stuff here. So when they talk about First Blood, Stallone's First Blood or whatever, Rambo First Blood, and stuff like that. And then obviously the whole complete opposite is, Rocky 3, what he did this year. Overall, I really like this. I've seen a lot of the big movies, the cult movies that are going to be in here. There's a couple I haven't seen. And one thing that it opened up my eyes on, so we're looking at 82, and I'm doing 82, and I watched Sword and the Sorcerer, which I'd seen before years ago as a kid. And that was a movie I watched for 82 because it was something that I remembered watching, and it kind of had a horror tinge to it. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's just a rip-off of Conan the Barbarian. They point that out, and then you also have Beastmaster that same year, and I'm like, the sword and fantasy kind of deal was coming back in the early 80s as well. And we have Conquest from 83, Fulci's Conquest the next year, so they were heavy there. And I'm like, should I have... I watched Conan last year, or this year, or last year, and I was like, it's in that time frame when I was doing the 82 stuff, and it's like, I don't know if I should have counted that as a watch, really, because I don't ever consider it a horror film, even though we have James Earl Jones as like a snake demon monster. So it's like, it's definitely horror adjacent. So gory as well, along with Sword of Sorcerer. I think that one tinges more to horror. But Beastmaster, all those are kind of like not, they're outlining on horror. I wouldn't call them horror movies. I would say horror adjacent, but I wouldn't even say, I think Conan, for some reason, maybe the prestige kind of pushes it even further away out of that kind of element. But overall, 1982, greatest geek year ever, is great. It's a great watch. It has, like I said, a wide plethora of people. A bunch of people I love in here, from Adrian Bravo, Darren Scott, a lot of people that talk on here that I've always enjoyed. Leonard Moulton's in here. Keith David. So a lot of famous people that I enjoy hearing their takes on, and I've always admired their work. So that's great stuff. As far as the special features are concerned, we have 5.1 surround sound. We also have 2.1, I believe, and we have audio commentary with director-producer Roger Lay Jr. and writer-producer Mark A. Altman. And then we have audio commentary by producer Scott Mans, Thomas P. Vitale, and Mark Altman. Then we have deleted and extended scenes, which are 40 minutes, which is huge because the movie, again, is already super long. So, and then we have the Fan Speak favorite film feature, which is 16 minutes, 2022 San Diego Comic-Con panel, then that's 28 minutes, a trailer, all that kind of stuff. So it's got a nice release on here. So if you're just like, it's a good piece to put in and just be like, yeah, let's just have this go in the background and realize how good people had it in 1982. Of course, we all must understand that there's a certain type of nostalgia that if you grow up with these movies in the background, you're always going to have a fondness towards that style of filmmaking. But I would argue that movies were made better at that time, but that's just me. And again, I'm arguing from that standpoint. But yeah, check it out. It's pretty good. Okay, we're going to continue the J-Horror Rising box set. 7 films in here. We did the first 2 last week. We're hopping into the next pair, Inugami. We'll start with that one. So this one is definitely like a folk horror kind of art piece, as they say on the back. And this was part of the double bill. A lot of these movies played with double bills, and whatnot. And I remember hearing the special features on here. The director was concerned, my movie's not going to be the double bill. It's not going to be the B-side, is it? So they assured him that. So this first film, which I do prefer of the two, is a really well-made movie. Now, it does require some patience. It's kind of a long, kind of hereditary, kind of folk kind of story. So what we have here is this small village where this kind of family is almost outcasted, but in a way they carry on their ceremonial rites once a year. And they are believed to be cursed with these kind of dog demon god things, and they will attack their enemies if whatnot. And the women are the only ones that seem to be able to see them. The whole family line is kind of screwed up, and there is kind of one son who's there who's just an alcoholic, and he was kind of adopted, I believe. He's not he's an alcoholic, and he's just a horrible kind of person. And they all live in this kind of big building and share it, common quarters kind of place. A lot of the townsfolk are there, and they seem to be kind of disgusted or apprehensive about the family. And this kind of teacher moves into the area, and he's teaching the kids, and he's very young. And basically the single woman there, she's middle-aged, and she makes paper. She uses the woods and the surrounding, the herbs and stuff to make this beautiful kind of paper. That's all she does all the time. And this great windstorm flies through, and people start having strange dreams. Everybody's having these nightmares and not sleeping well at all. And as she meets this young teacher, they start to have sort of like an affair, a secret affair, and she starts to get younger and younger looking and more beautiful. And it's not before long where somebody dies, and obviously a couple of people die in a cursed kind of way, and the village people start to point at this family and blame them in this kind of mass hysteria kind of angle here. And there's definitely something strange going on. I don't want to give everything away, but there's some incest going on. There's some curses going on, some obviously gothic kind of stuff, really creepy stuff, some old, hereditary behavior, some possible schizophrenic kind of behavior. And, it's a lot of premonitions and fate things. There's things that are supposed to come. But if you're looking at this, it's such a classy made movie, and then when it gets into these nasty little depths, it's kind of like when you're watching Chinatown. You're like, oh, what's the mystery here? You're like, that's the mystery? That's what we're finding out here? That is repulsive, but it's such a good, well-made film and everything, and such prestige actors. You're like, holy shit, they went there with that. And that's kind of here when I was like, oh, wow, we're going there. But the acting's really well done. There is a couple steamy, wet sex scenes in a cave. Now, once you know a little bit about the characters and everything and how old they are at certain times, you're like, not really exactly sexy. Is not the word I'd use for either of them. Kind of disturbing in some ways. But all in all, this movie's beautifully shot. Really great locations in the woods and the forest and stuff like that. This is a good film. This is a good Japanese horror film from the early 2000s. I would give it a recommend. There's some digital effects that maybe don't age amazingly, but the ending is pretty climactic and tragic and just everything it should be in what it is. As far as the special features are concerned, we have an audio commentary by Japanese film expert Jonathan Clemens. We also have Dog Day's brand new interview with the director Matsumo Harada, and that's in English if people are wondering. Most of the time they're subtitled, but he talks about not wanting to be the B picture and everything and wanting to have the full length time, nothing getting cut out. But this is a good one, Inugami. Maybe tied with the film in the first one that I really liked. What was the other one? I watched Shinkuku and Isola. I would put this above, and then Shinkuku, and then the other two are kind of baiting for going back and forth. But this is a really good one, Inugami. I would recommend it. Okay, the next one here in this set is St. John's Wort, and this is a really bizarre film in the long tradition of Japanese horror films, especially in the early 2000s. We have like this kind of technological advance. Although if you look at it back on Hisayasu Sato always mixed technology in his movies with like recordings and that kind of stuff, secret recordings and videotapes and all that kind of stuff with this kind of like Peeping Tom redo he did. But so there is that like aspect to it, right? Technology in horror movies, especially in the early 2000s, you're immediately going to think, The Ring coming out of the TV or Pulse coming out of the internet. And St. John's Wort is kind of that deal. I don't know how to go about this, but it follows these kind of two video game designers, four of them really. It's kind of like a team. And one of them is like, I think, a childhood kind of like problem early on in their life. And they want to revisit their kind of old home, their kind of haunted mansion kind of deal, from my understanding, is what I'm grasping here. And they take one of the other people that they used to have a relationship with, and they go there. And it's weird, like digital. It's like digitized, like they're in the video game as they're like the other two are programming it. Really bizarre kind of stuff going on at points. And so they go into this house and they start to investigate, and it realizes that this girl has had like a twin sister that was possibly dead or gone, and they find a bunch of weird mummified bodies in the house. And it's like this haunted house, creepy tale. But at the same time, we go back to the programmers, and they're talking them through everything like that, and they're trying to get them through. It's just such a bizarre kind of plot. You're like, are they in the video game? Are they creating the video game at the same time? All this kind of stuff. What's real? What's not real? And the story that they unfold is pretty interesting, pretty cool. It's kind of a sloppy movie, to be brutally honest, but there's genuinely a couple moments in the film where I was like, that's creepy, that's unsettling, even with like the kind of digital crappy graphics that they incorporate, but it works for this movie. But there's genuinely some actual scary stuff that's happening in it. So like visually, there's a couple good scares. I like the plot. I like the story. Kind of another classic kind of Japanese kind of style story with the twins. If you look at stuff like Island of Evil Spirits, it's just always kind of, or the idea of like twins or sisters or siblings in horror is very much prevalent always. It's just a very common plot device, I would say. But St. John's Wort is worth watching. I think it's probably the third best out of the four so far as we're moving along this box set. As far as the features are concerned, we have commentary by Japanese film expert Amber T. And then we have the Making of St. John's Wort archival feature. And we also have archival interviews with actresses Mugami Okina and Yoshihiro Sato, Riko Matsuo, and Koji Okura. And on behind-the-scenes footage of St. John's Wort. And I should mention, in the first film, Inugami, they do talk about the writer of the film, and she seemed to live a very interesting life and died young tragically, so that adds another element to that story. But Inugami is a really, really good film. I probably rated it a little lower than I should have. I think it's actually better than I gave it credit for. I think it's probably pretty good. Probably like a 7.5 out of 10 or something along those lines. But yeah, this set is still interesting as we move along. Till next week, we'll get to Carved Slitmouth Woman, which I've seen, and Persona. And then eventually we'll get to Noroi the Curse, which is an exceptional Japanese ghost story. Top tier stuff there. So yeah, check this set out if you haven't, if it sounds like it's up your alley. Alright, let's get into this set here from Mondo Macabro. We're going to hop into the first one, The Warrior and the Blind Swordsman from 1983. Indonesian flick, not directed by the guy who did the first film, Siswaro Guarmanputra. I think the director of both of these did both the films. This one's directed by Darcy Yacob, and the other one's directed by another guy who did a couple of more Indonesian horror films. So let's start with The Warrior and the Blind Swordsman. Now, these titles are starting to sound like Zatoichi films or something along those lines, in that kind of vein, right? So, what we go here is we open up and we have this like epic like tournament. And there's all these like these villains, you know. In the first film, it's just basically a bunch of crazy, weird mercenary villains that are badass going after, you know, Jaka Simbong. So you're like, okay, this is going to be the story here. And this one opens up and has like 3 or 4 guys standing in the sidelines waiting to have this tournament. And we know the evil Dutch imperialists are there holding this tournament, and they really just want to find the best fighter to go shoot him, send him out, hire him to go kill Jaka Simbong, who is the revolutionary leader of the people. So what happens is they have this fight tournament, and it's all fun, and somebody pushes this blind swordsman out there, this blind guy, and they're always a joke, and he's not, because he whoops everybody's ass, kills everybody, wins, and they say, we're going to offer you all this money to kill Jaka Simbong, and he says, sure, I'll do it. He goes out, and the first like 10 minutes, Jaka Simbong is killed, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? And I don't want to spoil that, but I kind of have to, because we obviously have the third movie where the warrior's in it, and this is just a plot device in the very beginning. The movie's not called The Warrior vs. The Blind Swordsman, it's called The Warrior and the Blind Swordsman. So apparently he used his magic, his mysticism and stuff like that. Everybody has like some sort of mystical power in here. Like in the first movie, there's a special feature with Jacques Antoine, and they basically say, you know, they're superheroes, but they use mysticism instead of, you know, science fiction powers or radiation or something along the lines. It's the mysticism and magic and all this kind of stuff there. So what happens is he plays a trick on the Dutch imperialists. They double cross him anyways. They plan on killing him. He makes an escape. There's this evil kind of sorceress who's madly in love with the blind swordsman, who wants them to be together and make the ultimate offspring, which is a crazy subplot in this movie where there's a bunch of like evil women there that want to, you know, sleep with Jaka Simbong and whatnot, and the blind swordsman. So these two end up pairing up and, you know, having to fight the Dutch imperialist. It's a pretty fun movie. A lot of these warrior movies kind of bleed together in kind of a weird kind of deal here. But it's funny that the characters from like the second film don't appear in the third film. But it's really led by these like two evil people that know this magical kind of stuff. They can transform and do all these kind of weird things. Now, I'm trying to think which one is which, where we have here where they basically, they Dutch have this kind of deal where they mix it in. I believe this is the one where they actually have a slew of like villains where they're like this trio of guys that actually end up hiring the Dutch kind of hire to go after them, if I'm not mistaken. But this one's fun. The Blind Swordsman's a good addition. The fight choreographing, I think, gets much better as this movie goes on. There's giant kind of big explosions and everything at the very end of this one, where the Dutch are just shooting cannons and blowing up this whole entire village and everything like that. And we kind of have a little tragic ending here that I enjoyed. Overall, The Warrior and The Blind Swordsman's a good one. You know what? I'm going to say I think they get better. Not better as they progress, but I think 2 and 3 are just a little bigger, a little bit more fun than the first Warrior, although they're all in the kind of same league. But good stuff. Okay, we're getting to the third of the Jaka Simbong movies, and this is The Warrior and the Ninja, 1985. Great year for cinema. So this one is actually directed by the guy who did Mystère Kembali from 1981, which is an awesome movie. If you haven't seen Mystère Kembali, you got to see it. It's great stuff. One of the best Indonesian films I've seen, I think. So this one follows the story of, we have like this black squirrel who's this ninja woman who basically is stealing from the rich to give to the poor, Robin Hood style character. And of course, they're going to team up with the Jaka Simbong, and they're going to fight a bunch of villains. Now this one opens up and it has like this character in a volcano, which seems very almost like a lot of the movies that, you know, what was that crazy wild movie? I keep bringing this up, Yashi the Evil Giant or something like that. It reminds me of that, like kind of deal going, a Thailand kind of movie. So this kind of volcanic guy is in here and something wakes him up. And he comes out and he is the man of iron now, because he's just been praying and getting all these powers this entire time. And he gets out and he wants to kill Jaka Simbong's master, who is an older, you know, the guy who teaches him a lot of things and whatnot. And so he's after him, and what happens is this is the one with the trio of villains. This guy who has magic, he ends up convincing this Iron Man to go after Jaka Simbong and the Black Squirrel and all that kind of stuff like that. And he has a couple other kind of sorcerers with him. This awesome female one who knows everything. I can't remember her name. And this other guy who's like kind of crippled, so he's like kind of moving around. It reminds me of Crippled Masters or something along those lines. So as we progress, we realize there's going to be a big showdown, right? So this end scene, like we have all these bad guys after these two. So we end up having like a group of villains coming here. We also have a traitor and stuff like that. There's this great scene where the Dutch imperialists have all the people tied up and they start killing like people, and they say, bring out Jaka Simbong. Of course he's got to come out, right? And the Black Squirrel they want. But I think this one kind of stands above the other ones because there's a lot of memorable villains. All of them always have a good rogues gallery. And this one I think brings out the kind of some of the best villains. We have like the Iron Man. And you always got to kill them in special ways, which reminds me of a lot of the Hong Kong martial arts movies where it's like you got to find their weakness to take them out, and they always have a weakness, even if it's really hard to find. And then we also drop movies on the ground all the time, but we have these other people, and there's some gore in here. Like I said, the Indonesian films kind of steer away from the nudity and sex, although the second one had a lot of sexuality because, it's a whole group of women that are trying to rape, like, mystical people so they can have the offspring powerful and whatnot. But, and I think that's the one that ends with, like, the big showdown where she has, like, her giant female team or whatnot. But this one ends up kind of focusing on these main bad guys heading out, and there's a great fight scene in like outside this building where all of them are squaring up. Like, a lot of these movies bleed together, and I know it's probably very poor on my end, but I watch these early in the week. I like to do the weekly video style, but overall these are really fun. These are really good. The martial arts gets better in the movies. Jaka Sembong, Barry Prima is good. I like him. And he's entertaining, and he's a nice, like, handsome kind of guy, perfect for the role. Now, I think there might possibly be, like, a fourth film, but I don't know. It's not by Rappi Films. It's not really part of their production series, so I don't know if Amanda Bajaro couldn't do it, or it's an unofficial one with, Barry Prima in it. But regardless, these are a lot of fun. I would recommend them for sure. Over 3 hours of horrors and mystical martial arts mayhem, and that is the truth. Put them both on, watch them together, like I did, and then get confused which one's which. But yeah, I would recommend these. These are a lot of fun. If you're into Indonesian films or martial arts film or fantasy horror style films, check these out. The Warrior and the Blind Swordsman, and The Warrior and the Ninja. Alright, we're getting into some 2024 movies, and the first one up is going to be VHS Beyond. Now, to be honest, I've been watching the VHS movies since they come out, and I'm not a big franchise guy, but for some reason, these all being so different, I've just kind of got hooked on the VHS movies, and I watch them right when they come out. We've had, VHS 1, VHS 2, VHS Viral, and then we had VHS, and now I'm going to get confused on the three that came out after. I don't remember which order, but it was like 94, 85, and 99. They're all really fun, some ranging in quality, but I always thought 2 stood above the rest. Now, when I'm getting to, like, the last 2 that came out before Beyond, I really like those 2. I thought they were really entertaining. So this one here, VHS Beyond. Now, the Beyond kind of suggests maybe some alien kind of stuff here. So we have a wraparound, and I think we have 4 more stories besides that. So the wraparound is kind of a strange kind of television story where they're, like, interviewing experts. Is this real? Is this fake? Whatnot kind of deal. And the end payoff's pretty good, pretty creepy, generally kind of deal. Just building up to that one moment to show that footage and everything like that, where it's like they can't prove it's fake or real, that kind of deal. Very, very entertaining, pretty solid wraparound. And the first story is called The Stork, I believe, and this is essentially just a zombie story hidden as a form of an alien story. So it's just point of view. These guys going in like body cam cop officers going through this entire house of what appears to be these mutant zombie things that are overtaken by some alien force. So you see like an evil alien mailman, and you see evil chainsaw welding guy. Creepy, gory, fun, exhilarating, really bonkers ass fucking monster at the end. Good short, very entertaining. The next one is called like Dream Girl. And this is an Indian one, I believe, and this follows the story of paparazzi trying to sneak in and get this video footage of this kind of superstar like singer working behind the scenes, and they sneak in and they realize something's off with her. She gets chewed out, and this guy's like, you don't have to listen to him. Sneaks out and says something when he shouldn't even be seen. And she's like, you're right. And she completely goes bonkers, turns into a massacre fest, incredibly gory, incredibly bloody, jaws getting ripped off, kind of gory and nasty and violent. And I remember at one point I was watching this VHS Beyond, and I was like, man, when did these VHS movies get so freaking violent? Like, not that I don't enjoy it, but these are incredibly violent movies now. Just over the top gore insanity. This one's pretty good. And then I think the third story is it Fur Babies? I don't know if the third or fourth is Fur Babies, but I think that it may be Fur Babies, so we'll go with that. And this is the Justin Long directed one. He directed it, I can't remember, with somebody else. Justin Long was, of course, in Tusk, and this is essentially just a more comedic remake of Tusk. So we have here is some I guess you would say, like, people that go on, like, I don't know what sort of, like, social justice warrior kind of style people, but they witness this woman who runs this doggy daycare or something along those lines, this obedience school, and she has these weird kind of taxidermied pets behind her that look really nasty and gnarly and everything like that. And they go there, and they want to interview her, her and start questioning her and everything. And they're like, listen, what's up with the taxidermy dogs? We don't think that you're on the level. We think you're mentally ill, yada, yada, yada. They start to dig deeper. And as they progress, they realize that this is kind of a tough storyline. It's comedic. It's weird. It's goofy. A lot of people say this is their least favorite. I thought it was funny. I thought it was entertaining. It's gory. It's goofy. It's gross. It's all right. It's not like amazing, but I liked it. It's good. It's different change of pace. Doesn't fit in with the rest of them, but hey, it's not a death penalty for me. I liked it. And then we're going to go to the skydiving one. I think this is probably the longest, maybe, or the strongest. The first one's really good, too. The first one's just nonstop insanity, so it's hard to get. Those first two are just really exhilarating, where it's just like, oh, shit, nothing. And this one is along the lines of that one, too. So this one, we have a group of friends all skydiving, about a dozen of them or so, maybe less, the pilot. And they look out the window. And this one actually probably is the best overall. Yeah, this one's the best. They look out the window, they see a UFO. They see some like fighter jets, and shit gets crazy. And the alien jumps on their ship, and boom, they kind of crash land. Some of them die in the crash. And what we have here is this kind of weird mantis, like scorpion kind of alien running around this apple orchard or peach orchard or whatever the fuck it is, and ripping apart people. It's really creepy. It's really well done. Entertaining, creepy monster. Good stuff. Recommended. And then the final story here, besides obviously ending on the wraparound, is a story that is more subdued, I would say slower. We have this woman who's kind of recorded over like a birthday party or some sort of like family, or her, I think it's her. Yeah, 'cause she has a little like creature toy that she takes with her everywhere and makes jokes about it. So she's making this documentary, and she's in like Arizona, kind of the Southwest area, and talking to all these people that seem to be like, desert rats and just kind of people that are, a little not on the level, a little strange, a little weird. Maybe some survivalists, maybe some people that are off the grid, if you will. And they're all saying this weird interviews and aliens. And obviously, she's like this. She starts to realize this is bullshit herself until she kind of ends up seeing something that's strange and entering it, and she ends up stuck inside a spacecraft, and all these creatures are in there, and she thinks she's recording something and documenting something, but that's not exactly what goes on. What happens is kind of the ultimate body horror and Cronenberg style Fly-esque stuff. Pretty cool, pretty sad, pretty depressing. Overall, VHS Beyond's good stuff. Enjoyed the hell out of it. Very, very fun. I like these. This popping in one every year, every couple years. I'm like, I can't complain about these. I enjoy the VHS movies. The only one that I think, even VHS Viral had a couple shorts I like. None of them are complete bust for me. And, I didn't love some of the ones in the first one. But the second one I thought was all good to great. The third one I thought had a couple good ones. The first one was mostly decent. And then I think the fourth one is the one where we had Ratma, and that one was cool, and there was a couple other ones that were good. And then we go on, I like here back and forth on all of them. Overall, it's weird that the VHS franchise is one of probably the easiest to watch. I mean, watching that many anthologies back to back is going to mess up your mind, but watch one every year, I'm down for that. Anytime, they're fun. All right, the next one here is Frankie Freako, and this is by Steven Katansky, or they're Astron 6 guys. I never know which ones are Astron 6 and which ones are just Steven Katansky movies. He directed, of course, a couple years ago, Psycho Goreman, which I love, Leprechaun Returns. I don't know if he's the one who's solely responsible for The Void, but Astron 6 is a group of people that made a bunch of really fun, kind of parody-esque movies, like The Editor and, Manborg. Most of the stuff I love to like. I've never seen anything by them. Was a total piece of crap. So Frankie Freako, yeah, I was like, all right. I saw like kind of bits and pieces of the trailer, and knowing me, you guys know I love little creature movies. How that's all I made. So it's just something that speaks to me. Not 80s, late 80s, early 90s little creature movies, full moon-esque style shit. I dig that kind of stuff, and Frankie Freako is kind of be a semi-parody, kind of like that. The Astron 6 guys always end up, this group of filmmakers always end up kind of making this weird kind of self-parody thing, but also being pretty genuine about what they're doing. So it's like a fine line that they're walking, and every once in a while, to me, they cross over, and maybe they're a little too, cynical. But most of the time, they're on the right side of that line for me, and I like what they do. So, Frankie Freako, I like this movie. Connor McSweeney, I think, is the actor's name. He's the star in this one. He was in Manborg. He's in all of them, probably all their movies. Father's Day is another one they did. So, he is the world's most dull guy. He works in an office. He's completely dull. Everyone tells him he's incredibly dull. Adam Brooks also works in there. He's a very funny actor in a bunch of their movies. He's the best in Psycho Goreman. I love Psycho Goreman. If you guys haven't realized, that's my favorite of theirs. One of my favorite movies that came out in the last few years. So he's incredibly dull, and he keeps seeing this infomercial, as you would back in the day. These crazy, crappy infomercials would play on TV. Like if you don't remember the Little Monsters one before the VHS, call 1-800-99-MAURICE. And like the Freddy Krueger hotline, which is directly referenced in this, which is fucking hilarious. So there's this guy called Frankie Freako, and he's this little kind of small dude. He's like he's technically a fucking little creature puppet thing, but you know, he's just like, call Frankie Freako and let's party. So he's like, it's weird. And it's just, he's disappointing his wife constantly with being incredibly dull. So one day he decides to call Frankie Freako for a party. What happens is, Freako and like two other little small people. One is like a Western kind of guy, and one's like this half robotic guy that says Shabadoo or some shit like that. And at first you're like, this isn't funny. The Shabadoo thing's not funny. It's not funny at all. But it turns into one of those things like Cannibal the Musical, where it's like Spadoinkle. And the first time I saw Cannibal the Musical, Spadoinkle was not funny. I was like, what the fuck is this terrible, stupid movie? And then like throughout the week, I was like, Spadoinkle, 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 and then it became one of my favorites to watch. So that's, I imagine that Shabadoo, whatever shit, is going to get stuck in your head too like that. So I'm watching it, and they start wrecking his house, and you're like, oh crap, well, Adam Brooks is trying to set him up and screw up his work life. But what happens is they end up coming from some strange world, like it's fucking Madballs or something, and they end up going to a different dimension where they have to face off against the big bad that ruined Freako's homeland. That's kind of the plot. There's a lot of fun special effects. There's miniatures. There's goofiness. It feels kind of like, you know, an Empire of Full Moon movie that, you know, more like Moonbeam. More like a better version of a Moonbeam movie. You know, what Charles Band's little kind of small, like, kids project would be, like Prehistoria or Remote Control or something along those lines. It's really enjoyable. One time, there's a line in here that had me cracking up by myself watching it. It's cute. I think it's pretty genuine for the most part, and I would recommend Frankie Freako. I think if you like Astron 6, you'll really enjoy this one. They always do a good job, so like I just really enjoy what they do. So check it out. Okay, the next one here is Immaculate. I don't know if this came out in 2023, but wide release 2024. I'd heard a lot of good things about Immaculate. This is the first Omen, got a lot of good reviews, and they were told to share a lot of similarities here. So we have this woman who wants to join this convent. And they're like putting her through really hard on this kind of deal. And they're saying all these kind of things like this, like you really have to be 100% dedicated. And a couple of the nuns are giving her a horrible time. She says, this is all I've ever wanted to do. So as she's staying there, and there's a couple strange things that happen, a lot of bad stuff going on. She becomes, you know, Immaculately Conception is the name of the game, right? So we see the movie Immaculate. So she gets, as Jesus was born, Immaculate Conception. So she's pregnant. She doesn't know how she's pregnant, and there's kind of a priest there that's like pushing and everything, and they're definitely trying to protect her and keep her isolated. And the more she wants to go see another doctor, the more they kind of double down on everything, and you start to think, what is going on here? And overall, I think this is a good movie. I think the first two acts are solid, well-acted, well-directed movie, and I think the third act pushes it over to make it a little better than good. I think there's some violence and crazy shit in there that I really enjoyed. But overall, I like this. And I don't want to get into spoilers, but I would recommend Immaculate. So, as the story progresses, we realize that, spoilers now, this is more than just your religious horror. This is also kind of a mad scientist kind of storyline here. Kind of like this idea, right, that, you know, they want to immaculately have immaculate conception for their own reasons and everything like this, and they're possibly doing all sorts of, you know, crazy things and whatnot. It becomes kind of this movie where our character has to stand up and fight out of the convent, and it gets incredibly violent. There's some really nasty stuff here, and I was just like watching this, and I was like, man, if it weren't for like stuff like The Substance and Terrifier 3 coming out, like, stuff like this and VHS Beyond are so fucking violent. Like, this is one of the most violent years I've seen in a long time in terms of cinema. And stuff that's getting mainstream appeal. So, I don't mind violence in my movies, you know what I mean? So I'm just sitting there, I'm just kind of flabbergasted in a good way. Like, geez, man, killing these priests and these nuns and everything like that. So I ended up enjoying this one. I think this is a well-made movie. Not necessarily my subgenre that's on my top tier subgenre favorite kind of list. So I think Immaculate's good. I think another watch would help it. It's wonderfully shot. It's beautifully shot. It's beautifully acted. Score. All that stuff is like top-notch stuff. So it's kind of a nasty, crazy kind of horror movie, just done incredibly well. You know, and I would recommend people to check this one out. I do think it is good. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. It's called Immaculate. Okay, the next one here. Here we go. Alien Romulus. Anybody that's followed me knows I'm not the world's biggest Fede Alvarez fan. I think the Evil Dead reboot's fine. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's horrible. I think that Don't Breathe's not that great. I think it's all right. So I was like, everybody's so excited. We got Fede Alvarez doing Alien Romulus, and I'm like, hey. So I'm weird with franchises, like I said, a lot of times. I watched the first 4 Aliens a bunch when I was a kid, whenever they came out. I love Alien, love Aliens, like Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. I remember liking it just fine when it came out. I saw the first Alien vs. Predator, didn't love it. Stopped watching then. Saw part of Alien vs. Predator Requiem. I was like, I never finished it. So that's what I got. Never saw Prometheus. Never saw Alien Covenant. So I know this has similarities and shout-outs to those movies, those last 2 movies. So maybe some of it was lost on me. But Alien Romulus takes place in between Alien and Aliens. And this is directed by Fede Alvarez, produced by Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott definitely has a heavy hand in this. So what we have here is a group of basically miners. It's definitely a big story on capitalism, being worked to death, never being able to escape from the work environment, all this kind of shit like this. Anybody that works blue collar, it's kind of bringing back that, that blue collar tradition of the first Alien, where these people are completely expendable, and Yulin Wutani, or whatever the hell the company's name is basically the one that the property's more important than people. And they've always had that, even in the Aliens and Alien, they're like that. Well, the ship costs so much money that everybody's expendable, and they have their own kind of, their ideology, what they want done. And that supersedes anything, any human life or any life in general, whatnot. So it's kind of what we're going for in Alien Romulus. We have this group of miners that are getting screwed over on their leave, this girl, and her family's dead. And all she has is this android, synthetic human is what they prefer, right? According to Bishop. So she has this android, and it's her only friend. Her father programmed this thing, so a little bit of her father is in this thing. All right, that's what I picked up from it. It's the only piece that she has, the only connection she has to her family left. So she has a very tight-knit closeness to this model, this android, and it's almost like a sibling to her. The actor who plays the android is phenomenal. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he's fantastic. His facial expressions throughout the entire movie are really good, and there's points when he switches kind of character mode and character drives and his stuff like that, and he's just good. Overall, really good. I like the lead actress as well, but there's a group of them that decide to say, screw this, we're going to steal this ship that's kind of out of commission or floating away or whatever. I don't remember exactly the details. And we're going to go to this place where you can see the sun, because none of these people have seen the sun. So they decided to do that. And somehow they come across a ship that was the ship that Nostradamus, the first ship, how we had that alien. So they launched that alien in space. And this other ship found that alien, were working on it, and they had all this kind of shit on there. So this ship has a bunch of alien crap on it, right? We even have Android. There's going to be spoilers in this view. Android that's very much like Ash, Ian Holm. And that's probably the biggest hit on the movie. We have this like CGI-faced version of Ian Holm. It looks like shit, overused. That's the only real complaint I have about the movie. But so they're on the ship, and there's face huggers on here and all sorts of stuff like that. So we have a group of, decent characters. Not amazing. I think that the girl and the android are the most well-known, and I like them for the most part. And they have to they have to survive this ship, because, of course, something's going to go wrong when the face huggers get out. Andy, the robot's name is Andy. He gets reprogrammed because they need him to be able to open the door, so they put the chip in there, the protocol from the other robot. So that ends up his mission statement is no longer to protect his sister. It's whatever's in the best interest of the company. So we have all that going on. What I thought was really cool about this, the look of it's great. It seems like a huge budgeted movie. I don't know how much it costs, but it looks really great. The acting's good. The music's good. I just thought it was really well done. I thought it was just creepy. I thought the aliens looked great. I thought the face huggers were cool. I thought they had great set pieces in the Alien movie. And what the Alien movies always did to me is they always set up these crazy elaborate scenarios, and I forget that they do that, and they always do it, especially in the sequels. Like part 4, it's like, we had to swim underwater in this fucking ship. It's like, why are we doing this? Who gives a shit? Because it's cool and scary, and we're putting the alien in a different position. And the same thing with Aliens. So it's like, we're in this big ship, we can't use our fucking guns because everything will explode. Something like that happens too. They're like, hey, listen, don't shoot these aliens because the acid blood is going to leak through the bottom of the ship, and we're going to be fucked when the airlock blast open. So that plays an effect, like kind of like Aliens, right? But what happens is we turn off the gravity, which they set up in the beginning really well. They set up the gravity device really well in the beginning. So we set that up in this one. And so somebody's using a gun to shoot all the aliens, and they're splattering everywhere, and the acid blood, instead of sinking to the bottom, is literally gravity floating in the air. So they're dodging acid blood. And I was like, that is fucking cool. They use the acid blood really well in this one. And there is a gross-ass fucking hybrid. Kind of like Part 4. Remember, we have that weird kind of hybrid with Sigourney Weaver and everything, where they have her as an android. They use her DNA to mix with an alien, and it creates this weird-ass thing. We have one of those fucking things in this movie, too, that's really gross. Overall, Alien Romulus is really entertaining, really cool. Feels like, an Aliens movie. It feels like more like an Alien 4 kind of deal, I would say, but mixed with like more kind of like 2 and 4, 1 and 4. It's kind of in that kind of mix. Now, yes, the characters aren't going to be as good as that amazing lineup in Part 1 or 2. Like, Part 1, it's like who's who in character actors. Like, you literally have newcomer Sigourney Weaver, but you also have fucking Yelphic Kodo, John Hurt, Ian Holm, Veronica Cartwright, Tom Skerritt. You have such a good fucking lineup. Like, you can't compete with those guys. Harry Dean Stanton, you can't compete with those guys. They're legends then, or they became legends later. So, it's hard to... I know people aren't... And these people will probably never be on that level. But the performance of the android here was really good. I think Andy was a great character. I think it was a great kind of performance. And I think that the female lead was decent. And the other male lead was decent. Like, Andy's the one that sticks out to me, obviously. I keep saying his name. But everyone else was fine. And one character pissed me off so bad when he bites it, when he gets covered in acid, I was like, yeah. But Alien Romulus, much better than expected. I know a lot of people will hold this under a microscope and be like, well, it's not aliens, and they should have done this, and they should have done that, and that's fair. I'm not an Alien fanatic. I love the first movie. I love the second movie. I like 3 and 4. I don't like Alien vs. Predator, and I probably like Prometheus. I'm not that picky. Hey man, if it sucks, I'll ignore it. It's not going to hurt me. You know what I mean? I'm not taking it personally, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. All right, let's hop into those 1982 movies. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to do the whole video because we just have one. It's been a long week, with Halloween and everything like that. This is a rewatch. I've covered this one before, and this is Blood Tide. This is produced by Nico Makazrakis, so that means it's filmed on the beautiful Greek islands, right? It has some familiar faces on here. Of course, it has James Earl Jones we got Marty Cove from Last House on the Left, Karate Kid, James Earl Jones from Conan the Barbarian, and Star Wars, of course. And let me say this first. James Earl Jones is really fantastic in this movie. Really creepy. I don't know how I felt about him the first time I watched this, but he's just so scary and creepy and intimidating. So what happens is Martin Cove and his wife are worried about his sister. She's disappeared. Supposedly she went out, she's an artist, to these Greek islands and everything to paint. So they show up to this really isolated Greek island where Jose Ferrer is the kind of the mayor, the patriarchal figure of this entire island. Jose Ferrer, good classical actor. At this point, he was doing stuff like Bloody Birthday from 81 and The Bean from 81 or 83, whichever way you see it. So, Jose Ferrer was already in the horror movie world. So why the fuck is he not going to do Blood Tide? Probably because him and James Earl Jones are like, we're going to get a great-ass vacation on these wonderful Greek islands, I imagine. So that's what we're doing here. Jose Ferrer's good actor. Always liked him. Always solid. And James Earl Jones, a classic actor. Martin Cove's good. Everyone's fine in here. The sister, she's not amazing, but she's fine. She's gorgeous. She's got these stunning blue eyes that draw you in. So what happens is James Earl Jones has a girlfriend. He's been hanging out with this artist type, and she's been kind of like working at like the church, like kind of unveiling these paintings. And James Earl Jones is some sort of modern day pirate. He's a crook, so he's scuba diving, which they don't like in these Greek islands because there's these treasures and these art heirlooms and all this kind of stuff nearby the surface. But in reality, we know that it's even something more than that. There's an evil presence underneath this kind of island, whatnot. Very Lovecraftian, right? There's this ancient evil god or something that used to require sacrifices. So he's been blowing up shit, and of course this thing escapes. There's a lot of intense moments with James Earl Jones and Martin Cove and other people. Just kind of, he's sweating and he's got these eyes that just, these eyes are just amazing. He's a great actor. He's very theatrical. And there's a great line in here where I think his girlfriend says he played, I can't think, Othello once, and he never got over it. That's perfect for, because he's like a pirate kind of criminal, not a horrible monster person in the movie. He's not perfect. He's not a great guy, but he's not like a super villain where he's like, I'm stabbing people. For the most part, kid falls in water, he's going to jump in and try to save the kid. He's not inhuman. But it's funny that he knows all. He speaks so wonderfully too, and he's just like, well, how would you explain? Like, not all criminals are stupid, but you know what I mean. Like, you're thinking like this kind of criminal guy who's drifting island to island, stealing stuff. You're like, well, what's his story? And then he's like, oh, he played Othello once. And you're like, that's cool. That's a nice touch. But so there's a lot of underwater scuba diving stuff, and what happens is the monster doesn't look great, but you don't get great glimpses at him. But the whole idea that he needs to mate with this woman, and there's these weird premonitions and these over classic kind of folklore paintings stripping back and seeing underneath the surface of what this whole village and the history. It's a cool movie. Blood Tide shot in a beautiful location, solid acting, cool story, Lovecraftian horror tinge. Would recommend. A little different from 1982. We have Piranha 2, which is an underwater horror film, which I watched for 81 because it was 81 when I watched it. Now it's 82. I'm gonna watch fucking Piranha 2 again, which is a complete, antithesis for Blood Tide. They're not much alike. They're water horror, but they're kind of out of here. They're nothing alike. But overall, Blood Tide's a good movie. It's got a solid cast. I like this one. As far as the special features, brand new audio commentary with co-writer-director Richard Jeffries, moderated by Michael Felsher, Swept by the Tide, newly filmed interview with producer, co-writer Nico Mascarakis. So I like this movie. Entertaining. It's been a long time. We have some convent horror as well. Beautiful location. Well shot, well made. Good movie. Okay, for the Patreon pick, we're doing Some Like It Rare, which I didn't know about, as this is a Belgium kind of French movie. I hadn't really heard much about it. I saw that it had really good reviews on Patreon. I meant on Letterboxd when I looked it up, and I was like, all right, we'll check this one out here. I think it was Jim Simon or Chris Carroll. I can't remember who gave me this one. Definitely seems like one of them, their picks. I think Chris Carroll. So I start watching this, and it's like this kind of silly comedy where it's... Now, be warned, this is a comedy. This is, kind of almost parody-like. I wouldn't say parody, but very satirical, I would say, for sure. We have a guy that runs a butcher shop. So him and his wife run this butcher shop. They're not doing very well. Their best friends run a big corporate kind of processing meat plant. So, that shit's not real meat to them. They don't like it. So, in the very beginning... somebody comes in and buys meat, and the husband's like tenderizing the meat, taking forever, and the wife's like getting pissed and taking forever, and she's like, sorry it took so long, gives him something free. He's like, what the hell was that about? Their obviously marriage is not good. Some radical vegans break into the butcher shop and trash the shop. He gets out, he starts fighting with one, knocks his mask off because we're an animal mask. They're like these kind of like, I guess you would say like espionage, kind of like hippies that want to destroy the meat, facility and whatnot. So what happens is they tangle, his mask comes off, and they make a police report, and they're just, the family's not doing very well. I mean, the relationship, they have a daughter that they love, and before long she starts dating this vegan, and he starts pushing his ideals on her and all these kind of things like that. And they're just like, fuck. Then one day they're driving down the road, and the husband spots, when they're in an argument, spots the guy who actually one of the people that perpetrated his butcher shop and destroyed it. He goes to back up and, to have a word with him, maybe hit him a little bit, but he runs him over completely and kills him. And the wife is completely obsessed with serial killer, TV shows, documentaries, all these kind of things. So she's always like, well, that's what the butcher of so-and-so did. And she's just, and it's always in the background on the TV. So it's very true crime, very realistic, because people are obsessed with that stuff, right? We all love a good horror story, a classic kind of criminal story. Who knows why? But so she's always watching them and always bringing up the things and correcting him on all the pronunciations and all that kind of stuff like that. So she's like, well, why don't we just throw the body around the town? So he's like, I'm just going to cut it up. He ends up kind of putting it in the meat to and throw it out with the bad meat and whatnot, cutting it up. He feeds his dog a little bit. Dog likes it. And before he can even get rid of it, his wife cuts it up and serves it to a customer. And this, they call it Iranian pork, is amazing. They love it. And they start to eat it. And they love it. And before long, they're looking around town trying to eat vegans. And it's very much like a more serious, more blood diner or something like that. Like, right? We haven't had an Egyptian or blood feast. We haven't had the Egyptian feast in 2,000 years or some shit like that, whatever it is. So they're looking on the lookout for Iranian pork. So it gets completely wild at points where they're killing dozens of people. Sometimes it hits that moment like Psychos in Love where they're like, we're not enjoying this. We killed somebody like Winnie who they liked. But there's this crazy montage of them just literally shooting people with a gun and chasing vegans and killing them. And I think that one of the funniest moments in the movie is they have to kind of go undercover. I'm spoiling a lot of this, but I don't think many people have seen this movie, and I really think they should. So they go undercover to like kind of act like vegans to try to lure other vegans in. And there's this moment they're out there screaming like, yeah, meat is murder, and all these plants, and they're saying a lot of stuff that, like, you know, what people do when it's, like, obviously bad for the environment, all this kind of shit like that. And then, like, another vegan starts to talk to them, they're like, and they start screaming back at them, like, all these kind of same shit, the same rhetoric, and they're just going back and forth screaming at each other. And it's like, that's kind of like the truth about something, right? When you get stuck in an echo chamber and everybody's just screaming at each other, they're screaming at the same shit over each other, like, what about this atrocity? What about this atrocity? And that works with so many different, like, groups of everybody. And it's just like, God, sometimes the most annoying fucking people are the people that you agree with, because you're just tired of hearing the same shit. Like, what do they call it? Preaching to the choir, man. Preaching to the choir. But obviously they're undercover, so it just works as a really funny kind of thing like that. Overall, it gets a little complicated. It's really funny. The performances in the two leads is fantastic. Love them. It's a good movie. I would definitely watch this again. I don't think it's been released in the States on disc. I would buy it in a heartbeat. Some like it rare. Great stuff. Yeah. I love it. I think you guys would enjoy it too. It's really funny. And I would try not to take offense to any of this stuff like this. After all, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. And it's comedy. And it's satirical. It's good. Let's get in these questions, comments, and concerns. Ken Coakley, I watched Late Night with the Devil a week or two ago. I did a 31-part post of the recommendations of a movie for each day in October. The running theme was all that the films take place on or around Halloween. Late Night with the Devil was one of my favorites of the bunch. It didn't take me back to the 70s like Detroit Rock City or Dazed and Confused, but it was very entertaining. One thing that they got right was the whole thing about Uri Geer and his claim that he could bend a spoon with his mind. David Dashmaushian did his best acting job since The Dark Knight. Ian Carmichael was great as the skeptic. I have had experiences with people like him, laughing in the middle of other people's making their point because he doesn't want to hear the other point of view. The movie is like an acid trip, or at least I think it does. I've never done acid before, but I assume it's like this movie. I haven't seen Smile 2 yet because I don't have any access to it, but I heard that Jack Nicholson's son is in it, and he looks like his father. I heard that might have been Jack Nicholson's son. He does. I watched a few films over the month to see how I would still react the same way. I watched all the Scream movies. I never liked any of them. Scream movies were too cookie cutter. The first three had none of the Wes Craven DNA all over them. It was all Kevin Williamson, just like I know he did last summer. I don't know much about the Williamson's previous work, but I think he must have been involved with Dawson's Creek in some way. But I will admit that the movies are pretty funny. The killer flaps his arms around like a muppet every time he chases a victim. I wish Wes Craven left us with something better. Now a movie that I hadn't seen in a long time that I really liked, Nosferatu the Vampire. The soundtrack was amazing, the atmosphere was creepy, and the acting was amazing. Klaus Kinski seemed born to play the Count. The makeup effects were really great. I noticed that Dracula's skin was getting its color back after biting Jonathan, who was losing his color. The ending, without giving anything away, was tragic and shocking. Yeah, Nosferatu the Vampire is a great one. I love all the rats that come in with the flag and that stuff. They do that. Groggy, 1971. Best part of every Tuesday. Excellent as ever. Thank you. Bobby D, really glad you decided to do a top 10 of 2024. I think it's turning out to be a great year. I've got 4 9s on my list. I can't remember the last time I had that many. I think I have over 4 9s too. So Nick Moore from Belgium. I'm still two of minds about Smile 2. They don't seem to take the story much further. About what a waste of a perfectly good Kyle Kullner performance, but then the breaks. I'm not even sure how the story can evolve. The Smile critter seems all powerful to me. The Japanese Ghost Stories box set seems like an excellent addition to any spook lover's collection. It makes me want to watch Kwaidan again. Surely one of the best anthologies ever made. Yes, I would agree. Questions. Why do so few actors return to horror over the course of their careers, do you think? Thespians like Josh Hartnett, Mia Goth, Kyle Gallner, and Kevin Bacon seem more willing than many others, however. I don't know. Just their preferences, and maybe they were worried that horror would kind of screw them over and they couldn't do anything else. What do you enjoy more about Halloween? The spiritual dimension, the commercial side, family reunions, or get-togethers with friends? I like passing out candy. And I like kind of dressing up and like jumping out and scaring kids and shit, passing out candy. It's like, whatever. No, that's my favorite. Me and my cousin did that this year. We had a blast. And also just, like hanging out with nephews and stuff and nieces and hanging out candy. That's fun. That's fun. That's what you should do, is give back, I do like dressing up though too. And, when you get to dress up and scare kids, it's like a little bit of acting, without any of the bullshit. So, it's a little fun. Which silver shamrock mask do you want, Dave? I'll take the pumpkin. Take the pumpkin for sure, although I look like a skeleton sometimes. Lastly, with Samhain being on your doorsteps, I'm going to quote both Charles Cyphers and Janet Leigh. May they rest in peace. It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare. Indeed. Enjoy. Abba96, one of the best channels on YouTube, review from a very knowledgeable expert on film. Thank you. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy who watches a lot of movies. I retain some, I lose some, but I appreciate The sentiments. Bad Brains Horror. Dave, have you checked out Maxine yet? Of course. There's a review for it. I saw that one in theaters when it came out. So it should be on there if you search Mrparka Maxine. It'll pop up. And he also says Dogra Magra from last week looks really good. It is really good. I think if you like Japanese films, it's right up your alley. Matthew the Whale. Speaking of Abigail, the lead girl in Lisa Frankenstein was the blonde-haired girl in Abigail. She also is in Freaky and the director of Lisa Frankenstein's Robin Williams' daughter. Good information, you know. Sometimes it takes a while, like, realizing that girl in Abigail is in Lisa Frankenstein and something else. Like, I didn't register that, but, like, I liked the performances in Lisa Frankenstein and Abigail, so it's like, shit. Hudson3838, hi Dave, great to see you doing more reviews on modern horror movies. Love them or hate them. I would love to hear your thoughts on Poor Things or Significant Other or Watcher with Mika Monroe. Have a good one. Thank you. Did I watch Watcher? I think I might have watched Watcher. Does that come out like a couple years ago? Way Up Dude, he gives a bunch of little crazy thorns and everything. Thank you, I appreciate it. Angelo150, another great video. Halloween is near. And James, do you like Trick or Treat from '86? I find it great. I do, and I picked it up this week, so yeah, I'll show that off. But yeah, let's get to this update. It's a rather large one. Alright, let's get into this update. First up is the 4K of Land of the Dead. You know, Scream Factory here, 2005, George Romero. Saw this in theaters. Really like this one. Not as good as the original trio, of course. Those are my favorite movies ever, so it's hard to compete. But better than it got credit for in the initial beginning. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Next up is from Vinegar Syndrome Archive. This is Mindbenders. Don't know much about this one. Looks fucking weird. You know me, I like my weird, so there we go. Next up, we got Gut Pile. Is this the Saturn's Core? That it is. Old SRS movie, I believe. Title, very disgusting title. Looks equally disgusting on the back. Very cool. Then we have Fear.com, which I never saw when it came out. I heard really bad things about it, but I was willing to give it a shot, and I mostly picked it up. Is this the Stephen Norton? William Malone directed this one. That's a good choice. But I also had a commentary by Nathaniel Thompson and Troy Howarth, so I decided to grab that one. Good guys, so Fear.com. We have Ghost Dance, which, you know what? I watched for 82. I'll have to rewatch it because it was like a VHS quality, completely pitch black. Couldn't see anything. So maybe this slasher here is a lot better. Blu-ray, I'm sure it is. There we go. Then we got one of my favorites, Murder Party. Magnet right here. We have Macon Blair on there. I love this movie. It was the first time I saw a Jeremy Saulnier movie. I saw it early, right when it came out. I didn't love it the first time, but the second watch, I fell madly in love with this movie, and I still quote it to this day. It's a favorite among my group of friends and everything like that. But Murder Party, low budget, brilliant, hilarious movie. Finally on Blu-ray, thank God. And we have Karnal. Not seen this one. This is a Philippines movie, which I've been picking up some of them. And any horror from other countries from, you know, a certain period, I will grab almost without question. So, yeah, looks interesting for sure. And then what else? Let's get into the box here. What do we got coming up? We got the Red Pony. I don't know if that's pronounced Pony or Peony film. Gambler movies, 1 through 3. I know there's a series of these, maybe 7, maybe more. But this is Film Movement. I had heard about these, always interested in them. They look cool. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to definitely pick these up. So we got 1 through 3. I'm sure there's more sets to follow. That's really cool. Like that. Then we have, from Canadian Pictures, we have Abducted, which is one that I've seen the cover for, which I never actually seen. I don't confuse this with the Joe Zito movie that he directed. So this is a different one, from my understanding. It's a Canadian Picture from '86. Yeah, not seen this. Is that Dan Haggerty in it? Looks like Dan Haggerty on back here. I doubt it is, but it would be funny if it was Dan Haggerty. Grizzly Adams himself. What do we got coming up? We got Night, which is another VHS Shitfest. Saturn's Core VHS Shitfest. I'm always confused who releases what. If You're a Vampire Tonight is not your night. Oh, shit. It's a fun cover. We got Dial D for Demons. Oh, no. It's a Hong Kong flick, if I'm not mistaken.
Who directed this one? It's one of the classic kind of guys. Billy Tang. Yeah, Billy Tang, who did Red to Kill and a slew of other batshit crazy movies. Heard this is less batshit, more ghost-oriented, but I'm going to give it a chance, of course. Then we got Corpse Mania from 1981. Awesome movie, one of the Shaw Brothers classics. When life ends, the terror begins. Maggot Fest. This is a Maggot Fest on 4K. I don't think the DVD looked entirely great, so I'm looking forward to watching this in 4K. This is a nasty little movie. It's a good one, too. It's a very good film. Then we got coming up here, we got Through the Looking Glass. I don't know if I should open this up. It's probably riddled with nudity. Kinda, sorta, maybe. I love that cover, so I'll show that. But there's like triple slip covers on here. A bunch of stuff going on. Just a beautiful release from Vinegar Syndrome. Mussolini? How do they say that? Mussolini. And then here we got the Trick or Treat set. That's it's not Synapse. It's Red Shirt Pictures. 1986. Very fun movie, Trick or Treat. Was a favorite of mine as a kid. My Aunt Judy, my great Aunt Judy, was like, "You ever seen Trick or Treat?" She liked horror movies, like a lot of my family members, and she told me to check this one out. And I saw this probably like 10 or 12, and I always liked it. I had an affinity for it. We got a big one here. All the Haunts Be Ours, Volume 2, the Compendium of Folk Horror, Volume 2. So yeah, do they have everything listed? What's on here? 13 disc, 24 international folk horror classics. That's where we go here. So I doubt they list absolutely everything, but To Fire, You Come at Last. Then we have Susanna, the Queen of Black Magic. Yeah, that's crazy. What else? We don't have all the movies listed here, but I'm very happy to have this set. There's a couple in here that I've always wanted to see. So this is a heavy frickin' set, guys. Knock somebody out with that thing. Then we got Shanks, which is a William Castle flick, if I'm not mistaken. I don't pick everything up from this label, but I grabbed the ones that interest me, and Shanks definitely interested me. 74, William Castle. So, yeah. And moving forward, we got The Tenant, Roman Polanski, of course, 1976. Cool movie. Part of the... how do you open this damn thing? Part of the Apartment trilogy. I don't even know how to open this thing. You know what, guys? I'm gonna need a minute to open this. I don't know how to do it, and I don't want to force anything. when you're not as smart as your slipcovers, right? There we go. And then last, but certainly not least, Forgotten Gialli, Volume 7. Very fucking cool. Love that opening right there. Oh, there's a breast assist there. What do we got in here? Let's pop them out. Not talking about them breasts. Leave them breasts in there. Mystère? Would it be called that Mystery or Mystère? I'm not sure how they pronounce that. But if there's a special way or just a special spelling on that. I've heard of that movie. Obsession, A Taste of Fear. Very cool. And last, Sweets from a Stranger. These look like more like late 80s, mid 80s kind of Gialli kind of style things. But anyways, I love those releases. And I guess we're going to get out of here, guys. Happy Halloween again.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.